Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today for a webinar on building a future-ready enterprise, accelerate intelligent outcomes with AI, presented by Dell Technologies. We have some very exciting sessions lined up for you today with technology leaders and industry experts. I'm sure you'll find them extremely relevant in today's context. I'm Anil Chopra, VP Research and Consulting at Cyber Media Research, and your host for today's session. Please note that for the duration of this webinar, all participants will be in listen-only mode. You can, however, keep sending us your questions through your chat window. We will take them up towards the end of this webinar. With that, let's begin. Now, we've entered an era of digitally led, data-driven economies. Enterprises need to, choose the right technologies to gear up for this tectonic shift. While there are many ways to leverage IT for the new normal, three areas stand out: edge computing, AI, and data management. That's why we've introduced this three-part webinar series. And the first one was on edge computing, which we conducted on October 8th. Today, we're going to focus on artificial intelligence. And I'll share some really interesting AI-related stats based on various studies conducted by CMR on AI over the past 18 months. So for that, let me quickly share my screen. So we've noticed that during this time, AI has evolved from an emerging technology into something that is finding, serious business critical use cases across enterprises. And, in fact, according to a study conducted by CMR recently, where we reached out to 500 CXOs of large enterprises, a majority of the respondents felt that AI will disrupt their business now or in the near future. Only a very small fraction said that they don't really see much disruption due to AI in the foreseeable future. The interesting point to note here is that there is a high or moderate satisfaction with AI deployments in over 50% of the cases. And, while AI is being applied to a wide number of use cases, leveraging AI to enhance customer experience used to be the top priority area where a majority of enterprises see benefits. This is understandable since chatbots and AI-based recommendation engines are more mature technologies than others. AI is therefore being applied to enhance customer experience and engagement. And the second big area where customers perceive benefit from AI is revenue growth, and an immediate third is to reduce costs and operational efficiency. No wonder then that customer service and operations are the two functions where AI is being applied the most. This, of course, varies across different types of enterprises. The BFSI segment, this is a deeper drill down into the data that we have, is that the BFSI segment finds a lot of value in leveraging AI to improve customer service, while industries like retail, healthcare, agriculture organizations are using AI in operations. And so as what you can see is that there's plenty of interesting use cases that are emerging around AI over the past 18 months. We saw quite a few of them come. Here's one interesting one where there's an aluminum refinery that leveraged AI to produce premium grade aluminum that actually helped them fetch them an extra price when the company was getting low price for regular aluminum on the London Metal Exchange. The company basically did IT/OT integration for real-time tracking of metal purity, raw material quality, assessment of coke, alumina, and hot metal, etc., and was actually able to produce premium grade aluminum, which got them some really, really good price. Another example is in agriculture, where there's a aquaculture company that aids prawn farming, leverage AI to really regulate feed usage by analyzing data from the pond level. Now, this helped identify patterns, to reduce feed waste and ensure right quantity, thereby helping farmers reduce the feed cost, because that really comprises a majority of the cost for any aquaculture farmer. Similarly, a leading general insurance company built a machine learning model for its car insurance business to provide intelligent insights to the retention team to target the right customers using the right channels for renewal. Result, that they increased their digital renewals by more than 80%. So, what I'm trying to say is that, these are just a few use cases of AI that are, being used for ops efficiency and drive revenue and all that. The possibilities are immense, but, I think a few things we must keep in mind for AI deployment is that you need to encourage a data first culture in the organization. in order to really be able to align business with IT. IT infrastructure, of course, becomes important. You need to have the right infra for AI deployments, as AI can be fairly resource intensive. Lastly, as it's all about data, which grows rapidly, it's important to ensure scalability of infrastructure, so as to support this data and growth. So that's all I really wanted to share. And I think we'll discuss more about, interesting use cases or other aspects of AI to accelerate business outcomes. So basically, it's now time for the panel on accelerating intelligent outcomes with AI. For this, we have the privilege of having some very, very senior technology leaders with us. It would be moderated by my colleague, Prabhu Ram, who heads Industry Intelligence Group at CMR. So with this, I'd like to end my presentation and hand it over to Prabhu. Thanks, and over to you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Anil, for that insightful presentation. And that's something which we have been seeing through our CMR enterprise research, that AI adoption is definitely on the upswing, and there is a real world transformation which is happening. Today we have some eminent technologists. Let me just introduce them quickly to you. First up, we have Mr. Radhakrishna Pillai, CIO at SRL Diagnostics. Radhakrishna ji, welcome onto this panel. Yogesh Dadke, IT leader, global control and compliance at Adient Technologies. Yogesh, great to have you as well. And Abhay Bapna, who is AVP IT applications at Adani Wilmar. Abhay, welcome on board for this interaction as such. Really appreciate all three of you for taking the time out. And as Anil mentioned, presenting those insights, we do see that AI adoption really increasing over the course of the last 18 months or so, and there is that potential, but as business leaders, we would love to understand more from you in terms of what those use cases are, what are those drivers that really accelerated AI adoption in your industry, and what was missing earlier. And if I could start with Mr. Pillai, it would be great to have your insights in terms of what you have been seeing both in your company as well as in your industry, in terms of what's happening now versus what was missing earlier.
Thank you, Prabhu. And in the last 18 months, it has become evident that enterprise that have already adopted digital transformation, or some part of AI, found themselves better equipped to withstand the pressure on the pandemic, Yeah. And this AI offers multiple advantages over traditional analytics. People will get confused whether it's one version of analytics, but in healthcare specifically, it can bring a lot of accurate clinical decision-making techniques. AI can provide accurate information. It can improve productivity, thereby patient outcomes. In some other cases, especially in diagnostics, AI also can help increasing productivity of the doctor, and I'm sure in turn it benefit a patient. See, but data is an issue. We collect a lot of data, but there is no standard uniform way we collect data. Different healthcare service provider take data in different forms. So when we want to use AI, unless until the data is not synchronized, and we will not be able to use for a meaningful decision making process. One example, the government also initiating a lot of digital standardization process with NDHM and National Health Digital Mission. One such example is that they are trying to coding the entire services offered by the pathology labs. Some kind of standard coding is already used by the hospitals, but in pathology labs also now, for example, CBC may have a separate code for different labs. Now we are adopting a standard, thereby there will be a standard across all the service providers. Not only that, even NDHM is also trying to integrate so that data will be available for a patient, irrespective whether they go to A lab or B lab. information will be available in in central place. We can use lot of analytics or AI on top of that. So one of the challenges we faced during the initial phase of AI was the acceptability among the user group. The customer service or customer experience, there is no major challenge we face, but in our one of the use case, when we want to use it, data is a challenge. Getting a data in a standard form, collecting everything together is a challenge, but we overcome that because we have a little more better control on our data produced from different labs. But the acceptability, when I talk, when we were analyzing one use case was used for cervical cancer, when the whole slide image, which is approximately around 1500 individual image stitched together as one whole slide. If a doctor has to do the reporting in a traditional way under the microscope, scanning through all 1500 image is a time-consuming process.
Right.
But not only that, when I talked about the accuracy of AI, there are literatures available that the concordance of the reporting among doctors on the histopathology reporting is around 75%. So the accuracy level, you understand, if a doctor to doctor, it can change because it's very completely subjective. But in AI, it can make that accuracy, when we are done, it's above 96 to 97%. So that is a kind of advantage we can bring while using AI, and which in turn benefit not only turnaround time for reporting, but also patient outcomes.
Yeah. No, makes sense what you're saying. And I mean, I really appreciate that example which you shared, around what you have been doing with specifically those cervical cancer as such. Those outcomes are really important, that AI plays a role in clear decision making as such. Really appreciate that. Abhay, if I can come to you, there are those risks and challenges, as Mr. Pillai also indicated. In your industry as such, when you look at it, what are those risks and challenges which are there, which one should be cognizant of in their digital transformation journey as such?
Risk, we are basically a manufacturer and supplier. So the challenges will be different compared to what we talk about, say, insurance or banking or pharma industry, where the objective and goal of the company is different. And in our case, the things are different. So when we have multiple plants across India, the challenges, how do you manage those plants? How do you ensure that there is a reduction in downtime, continuous monitoring, continuous alert? How do you get this? In order to get this, you need to have a right historical data. Now, how do you get this historical? Earlier, we were maintaining logbooks. Now we have a IoT-based, sensor-based data, which is real time, where you can take a real decision. Actually, it's an edge level decision, which is for operator, supervisor, and the other is more of an analytical for one plant to another plant or one OEM machine to another. So that is one case from the point of view of manufacturing. So like challenge, I will not say it's a challenge, it's a journey. Everybody needs to start. Data is the first thing. If data is okay, things will happen, but data itself is a journey. It's not a immediately you can, and you require sufficient 2-3 years of data. So the data governance, data rules, data capturing process, storing, converting, creating value of that data. That's more important. And not only value is nothing but the insight. Earlier, we used to do post-mortem of the data, took the historical data and then did post-mortem. That too after 10 days of things happening. Now the things have changed. Now we are thinking more from the insights point of view. Today, aaj mere ko kya karna hai? What do I have to do today? What actions I have to take so that my situation don't get bad. Say, maintenance is one activity, planned maintenance. How do I ensure that my boiler is running at required speed? So temperature, pressure, vibration, sounds are perfect. Or if it is going down, that means some alert should come. How do I get the alert? So You have the historical data which is doing prediction. At the same time, you have defined some norms, and that is helping you to take proactive measure. Instead of going in downtime mode, you are now getting alert, you are reducing more damage, or you are thereby reducing last minute cost of service engineer maintenance. So these are some other things, but I will say it is journey. What you require is a strong domain experience of those things, those areas. Secondly, you need to, it's a journey, so therefore data becomes a critical component. Data, earlier somebody used to call oil or gold, or today now data is like, it's an asset, it's a value, where you have to transform that data into value for your business, for manufacturing, for logistic, for planning and execution. So that way, but resource is one challenge, domain knowledge is another thing which needs to be there. Data governance is the another thing which everybody needs to consistently check, because even if it is 1% data, the comfort level goes up, or the predictive models which you are using, it will start giving you incorrect value. It will not be very drastic different, but the trust goes up. So I have seen in the past couple of cases where the output generated by engine was not up to the expectation, and you have taken wrong decision based on that. So these are something which you learn over a period of time. It's not that the I have a AI engine and I will start working on that. It takes some time. That is what I feel. But we have used it a couple of places: manufacturing, logistic, pricing, forecasting, and pricing is the one where we are for real-time monitoring of the truck movements, and how do you negotiate the prices for that. Actually. So these are some of the areas, but I think it's a journey. That is what I feel, and everybody needs to start this journey. You cannot say, "Okay, I will not start." But if you have to stay in this world, you have to start today or tomorrow. But better start now. Identify your problems, 3 critical problems. Focus on those. Learn and mature on that.
No, well said, actually. And that's something which we also have seen in our studies as such. Once you start doing those pilots, it's not about embracing a full-blown AI strategy at one go at scale, but rather you take out those specific contexts, do those pilots, basis that, do your learning, and then go full force ahead as such.
So what pilot helped us was
Yeah.
like, we got good buy-in from end user management, and that helped us to move to the next layer. So that is one way of taking everybody together and maturing in the journey.
Got you. Got you. Yogesh, what are those trends which you are seeing in your industry as such, the challenges in terms of really embracing AI and driving digital transformation as such?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the invite. Thank you for arranging it. And I hope about 100, I see about 150 odd participants in this conversation. And everybody must be very happy and proud about India's achievement, first about 1 billion vaccination doses, thanks to the team members like Radha Krishna Pillai organizations, where because of whom we could achieve that. Now, of course, that's not possible without AI. For industries like ours, which is car seat manufacturing industry, to retain our position at globally number one, we have to make sure that we are on top of our game plan. And in that game plan, of course, artificial intelligence, ML, that is machine learning, plays a very vital role for us. Now, as such, in Adient, we have about 21 odd initiatives where we are directly using artificial intelligence in some or other fashion. Okay, of course, I'm not going to name each and every project kind of, but at least on a high level, from the classification, object detection, regression, clustering, and anomaly detection. So, for example, if we talk about my industry, which is car seat manufacturing, for us, detecting wrinkles before dispatch is most critical component. Otherwise, my product will get rejected at OEM side. So to detect that, we use, of course, we can go through the use case in details in a later part of the conversation. but also on simplest of the forms, that is on our account payable, account receivable, warranty mechanisms, foam detections. All those are important, critical to sustain ourselves at the top of the game. And overall, from the quality conscious perspective, and as well as proactive maintenance side of it, it definitely helped us to be on the top of our game. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We talked about the challenges. We talked about how across industries, from healthcare to manufacturing to automotives, how these are varying. If I could come to you, Radhakrishna ji, like what a company should do, whoever is in their early stages of their digital transformation journey, how should they look at integrating AI as such, into their journey, and how should they leverage the data?
One need to build a trust among the users. That is a very, very critical aspect. When we were doing the initial brainstorming, the doctor community was saying that we need 100% accurate reporting. But when we said that without AI, if you do a conventional reporting, the accuracy level based on the available literatures is 75%. So then slowly they started accepting it. But another aspect is, for years together, the doctors are doing the conventional reporting under microscope. The change management is another aspect needs to be done. Third is process re-engineering, reimagining the organization and do the process re-engineering. Because when you are doing the conventional reporting, you may follow a particular process, but when we use AI, you may have to alter the processes. So if you don't take these three things together, data, of course, underlying aspect is data. We need to have a right data for doing this. Unless until we do this, we will not be able to be successful, and then getting the buying will be difficult.
Right.
But one learning we got it from this, one of the project when we are doing as a pilot, we may not understand using a normal analytics to find out some underlying anomaly or some comorbidities. But when we are done AI based some analysis, we realize that some patient having a particular condition also have a tendency to develop some other comorbidities. Otherwise, which will can miss it. And if you do if you have a right data and right analysis, this is going to be a very, very helpful for doctors to use for a better clinical decision making.
Can you illustrate that last point? How do you go about analyzing those, or mapping those comorbidities?
I can give you an example. When we were, if we doing some analysis on a diabetes patient, then we realized that diabetic patient, apart from their diabetes going in a particular level, they also have a tendency to have an increase in uric acid level. So the doctor may be treating only for diabetes, not for the other comorbidities, but that information is available with the doctor. They can parallelly, just was an example. It may not be a right thing to, I don't want to, get into the trouble with the doctor. So those are the things AI can really help. And this will also can be used as a predictive model, So in the early stage itself, we can take a corrective steps.
Got you. Yogesh, when you look at it, in terms of digital transformation as such, where does AI fit in? And again, for someone who is, from the audience, who is today thinking about initiating those steps, how can they go about it?
So usually for any digital transformation, the journey starts with, you know, taking or owning it. First thing, that's what usually what I have done so far. Okay, first know what you have, not what you want. What I have, I should know it thoroughly. For example, you know, it may be a small office, it may be some computers, it may be, but what do I want to do? That is for then you go into the data understanding. What data do I need to know for my analysis purposes or for my enabling AI model? For like we are taking the example of pathologists, we are taking example of automobile, car seating, and from manufacturing industry. Every industry goes through a transition period which navigates the technological navigation of it, and what will support to that technological navigation. In that, what is a misinformation? Like, you know, one of our panelists mentioned data is, you know, gold, oil, whatever we call it as commodity. But in if we have not done that data analysis properly, it's a garbage in, garbage out. Then you cannot blame on the processes, you cannot blame on the IT infrastructure that is available, you cannot blame on the people that are available. So making sure you are keeping that misinformation of that data away from it is also equally important. Then of course, automation comes into the picture. Which are the processes, like Radhakrishna Saab said, where we have connect with and take the confidence of your internal you know, competencies. For us, like we have a foam competency, we have trim competency, fabric competency, complete seat, metal competency. Each vertical, each business vertical have their own presets. For example, if I talk about metal competency, but we are talking about electrical cars, then I cannot have complete metal embedded on that car seat, which is going to get implemented in the in a battery operated or green car, we call it as. So yeah, or electrical car, because I need to keep the car seat weight 30% less than the usual car seat. So I have to go towards carbon modeling. So these are the automation components where I need to know first before business comes to me, so that I can help them understand what is the best technology in that ecosystem. Last couple of are managing it and producing the value out of it. Whether you produce the value out of your data, value out of your transformation, value out of your ecosystem, and value out of your business support that you are doing. For example, for us, IT is always a service center or support center, we call it as. But when even if it is a support center, if I help reduce my car seat cost, it will help my marketing department to market it better and sell more car seats. So think it or wear those shoes first before you even implement a particular technology. That's my usual way of thinking. You know, few people, few leaders over here may have little more you know, other thought processes, and we can take this question forward. Thank you.
Abhay, how do you see it in your industry and with your experience? How do you see this digital transformation journey and wherein AI comes in? And if someone were to start their journey today, what should they factor in as such?
Yeah, so like the key component is we should be very clear before starting any journey. We should be very clear what is vision of the company, what is strategy, what is the plan for next 4 5 years. Because when I say I have to use AI data which I have acquired from different sources, how do I use that? How do I find out the insights of that data? How do I do the future plan? So there are multiple ways in which you start, but we started with our critical production problems. Production downtime was the main concern for us. If we have a continuous production line, so if one critical machine goes down, whole line is down. Okay. Therefore, you have to, so that was the best case for us. We used the simplified technique where we use the device which was capturing multiple parameters from that system, giving alerts, thereby reducing the downtime, thereby ensuring that we have a more production, less support services, spare cost. So that was the example we took it. We did it as a pilot at one plant, and user became comfortable at plant level, because initially we faced problem in the sense that when you start all this thing, you don't know what type of alert needs to be put. When do you need an alert? It was like, so much alerts were coming. We had to fine tune, refine. So it took a couple of months to stabilize. Once that was done, but what happens is in these machines where a super operator will not know the details. So some expert advice is also needed. The person who knows the domain of that machine, particular machine, which is supplied by. Say, so that also helps. So it's a journey. You can take one by one approach of like, what is your key problem area which you want to solve. So prediction is predictive maintenance is one. Operational efficiency is the second one, which we have taken because we wanted to reduce the cost of electricity, water, gas, steam. Okay, that's another area we can take. Route planning is another one. Transportation and load, transportation cost optimization is another one. So we also went in a phase approach, and now the best part is the data is more accurate, in the sense more system generated. So you don't have manipulate data of the loss. So that is where it is helping you to generate better insights using this tool.
Got it. Got it.
And we are trying to use it for sales, finding new market, new customer, new city, new rural areas where we are not there, but where we can be there. Who will be the least, who will be the nearest distributor who can supply, what will be the cost. So these are the other things which are, you can use Sensex data plus your own data and regenerate the plan for that.
Understood. Dr. Radhakrishna ji, if I were to come to you, healthcare definitely has those risks and challenges more than, all the other sectors when it comes to, data privacy, cybersecurity, and so on, and those ethical issues as well. We touched upon it when we last spoke, but if we could just go a little bit more in detail as such in terms of those risks and challenges one should be aware of, especially those from your industry vertical as such, and how could they navigate that, when it comes to AI embracement as such?
So here one data privacy and security related issues is it's a new norm. We can't avoid that. So we have to deal with that issue. Second, in healthcare, consent is going to be very key for using data. So in fact, the government is also they are initiating a NDHM. The consent manager is going to be a key center of the entire ecosystem. So consent is very, very critical here. Third, if we are analyzing data for improving healthcare outcome to the end customer, then the data can be used. Fourth, whenever we do, we try to anonymize the identity of the customer, and we only use the data for analyzing and doing the final AI modeling. Next important is the trust, ensuring that while building any solution for healthcare, we need to bring the stakeholders beforehand and create that awareness among them and make them as a part of this entire project. Then only this will go on, because unless until the doctors or technical staff, they are not in line with the objective, and this AI modeling will not be successful. So that's a key. I mean, it's not an IT driven project. It should be from the user driven project.
Understood. Yeah. Point again. Abhay, if I could have that question to you as well, how do you see that in your industry, when we talk about all these risks and challenges, what is that you're saying, what can be done, to navigate these risks and challenges as such?
Sorry, can you just repeat the last sentence?
I meant what could be done to navigate such risks and challenges, especially in terms of data privacy and all what we were talking about. Healthcare definitely has the most criticality, but in your sector as well, what is that you are seeing, and how could one navigate that?
The change point which everybody needs to understand is the, like, earlier my way of working or anybody's way of working was Excel driven, maximum 64,000 line item or 1 lakh line item. There, uh, you could do limited thing. Now, what has happened is you have n number of source of data. So what has happened is, as a individual level, I will not be able to analyze. I need support of the external tool to look into that those millions of data to find out just that exception which can give me better improvement in productivity or efficiency or cost optimization. So as explained earlier also, we identify, yes, challenges definitely there. One is the resource will be the key challenge. uh, Domain knowledge is the another challenge. Maturing data is the third point, and the fourth one is these models mature over a period of time. You have to try a lot of combination in that to arrive at the right model for A class, B class, C class cities or customer or a product. So it's not that it will work immediately next day. And you need to have a sufficient historical data also to support you. If you really see pre-COVID situation, during COVID and post-COVID, so today's situation, you cannot use the during COVID data to do some analysis because it will not work. It will fail at one or end or another end. So you need to have a right balance of data also to take a better. Otherwise, engine optimization will not work properly. So these are the learning which I have. So therefore, it's a journey. It's a maturity model which you go from stage by stage, and definitely data, people, process, and technology. All three critical are critical. The challenge currently is the niche. You need to take a expert help, especially in modeling component. And once it more, you can build an internal team doing small pilots and keep on expanding it.
I got it. Yogesh, we spoke about the challenges. If we can talk about the best practices, and this could be, vertical agnostic, from your experience, how do you see that, what are those best practices which could be there to derive those business value from AI deployment as such?
Absolutely, absolutely. Most important thing. I mean, these are best practices are definitely platform independent. Platform in the sense, whichever industry that you talk about. First thing, which I mean, that's what I would come from other panel members also. That is, one is your critical thinking. What dimensions, nuances, or possibilities, um, granular approaches, keep it away. First thing is, what is the outcome or output that everybody in the organization collectively want to do. Maybe it's the strategic leadership want to do. Maybe it's CIO, CFO, CISO, CDA, CDO, whoever are there. What do they want to do from a critical thinking perspective? Second one is having a accurate design thinking. For example, when I spoke about our car seat passport kind of our project which we have, like creating a QR code for a complete car seat, which can give history, geography, supplier history, etc. You by scanning one single QR code of my car seat, and it can get correlate towards recall, towards insurance, towards my recoveries, towards my financial processes, and as well as towards warranties. Then it becomes a complete critical thinking, that is design thinking. What do I want to do? Then the complexity which are there. There could be various puzzles to the there could be various pieces to the puzzle, but one particular puzzle will solve the entire puzzle. So that piece is important. Even if it is complex, think about it, keep it ready, keep it handy. Always keep the big picture in the mind, even though you are taking the baby steps. So before walking, think about crawling, think about how can we stand, and then, yeah, but always have that big picture in the mind. to your strategic thinking. It should be aligned to the critical thinking. And then the creativity will come into the picture. Various people from the organization will provide their own inputs towards the success of the project. We definitely, as an organization, being in the strategic leadership position, flexibility and the cognitive flexibility towards the approach. Maybe somebody will call it as agile, somebody will call it as scrum, whatever definitions that you want to use it, be ready for that flexibility. And then ultimately everything result into a service, that is service orientation. Whether you are selling something, whether you are producing something, whether you are making something, it should lead, or your AI, you are using your AI towards proactive maintenance mode. That is a service you are giving internal to the organization. So it should be a service oriented, where it should help, it should produce something, it should help to make sure your organization is doing something value add, or you are doing something value add to that. And then comes towards your data management, deep conversions, kind of all these are key enablers towards your success while deploying your AI. Thank you.
I got it. So one question that I have, and this is open for all of you, starting with you, Radhakrishna ji, if I could, understand the IT requirement bit. We spoke about the benefits, we spoke about the challenges, the ethical issues and all. But when you look at the IT infrastructure requirements, how much change is really required to maximize performance as such, in terms of setting up AI projects and going forward with that?
So one, the infrastructure is to be scalable. When you start the project, you may not need a very high computing and high resources. So it should be scalable. So one of the things what we adopted, we depended on cloud, so that as and when required, we can, enhance the capacity. So that's one. The computing requirement is going to be very high. Data we need to have an historical data. The storage is going to be very high in, especially in our kind of project. What we are doing is an image. That image is, capacity wise, whether it's a histopathology image or radiology, is going to be, storage consumption is going to be very high. Mm-hmm. So it should be a scalable infrastructure. We need to plan accordingly, so that we can get a right output and right time.
They got it. Abhay, what's your take on this?
Like we had a two approach actually. One is where we know that the data set is limited, and there we are trying to find the insights. So that was one component, but the second component was the manufacturing, where more than 20,000 tags and sensors were used, and where every 15 minutes you are getting different utility data. There it was not possible to use a local server, and therefore we went to a cloud level, high performing, high scalable data sets, where we know that that's where the data requirement used, and there we went for a cloud model, so that the edge level data is at edge and rest of the data is moved to cloud for better analytics or insights driven. So that's how we went about in two cases.
And so for anybody who is really new to all of this, should this be a deterrent, or, should it be like, as you mentioned?
No, so like one of the cases where we started was to analyze the data of the places where we are not going, villages where we are not going. So we took the census data of five states, which was huge. Then identifying which cities, what is the population level of those cities, what is the, is a house having a TV, fridge, or a scooter or anything? What is the potential of that village? But we are not going. How do you go there actually? What is the nearest point from where we can? So these are the places where you, at one level of data, you can use them the local level, or you can have a cloud level. You can go step-by-step approach, which is scalable based on your need. Because you are here, you're not talking about terabytes of data for analytics. But if it is like that, you can plan accordingly.
Got it. To everyone who is listening in today, who is watching in, I would encourage you definitely to post your questions in the Q&A section there, and that would really help. Our panelists are available. We would answer those questions later in the course of this program. I believe like we are running out of time. The parting thought from all three of you, when you look at the future, how do you see AI adoption as such in your industry vertical? How optimistic are you? Where do you see those use cases really picking up in the next 18 months or so? Starting with you, Radhakrishna ji.
One, we will be using extensively in coming days and coming years. Radiology was the earlier adopters of AI, but only one underlying fact is that AI is not going to replace the human intelligence. So this is going to be the enabler for human intelligence. So we are not going to replace, doctors or technical staff or IT staff by using AI. This is only just for an aid for doctors to deliver right clinical outcomes. Thank you.
It is more of a recommendation which the engines give you. It is not like, definitely what Mr. Pillai said, that it is not replacing anybody, but it is helping you to take better decision at that particular point of time. That's what I feel.
So how do you see the future as such, in terms of?
Yeah, it will definitely increase because now the data, your connectivity, mobility at IoT level. So there are many sources and many sources data is generated which manually you cannot analyze. You need some right analytical tool in place which will help you to analyze and give insight to you, me, or whoever it is for taking better decisions.
I got you. Yogesh, how about you? How optimistic are you? What you see is the future like for AI adoption in your industry and agnostic as well?
Sure. So before answering that question, I'll add a little bit my quarter cent to your previous question, right? So you asked about, is there any particular way of looking at it, or is there a particular hardware or requirement that usually there is no, of course, there is no right hand thumb rule, but in my experience so far, I kind of derived a SOA based approach. That is, first is your service, second one is your object, and third one is your application. So you have to define where your application is going to reside, whether it's going to reside in your prem or in cloud, whether it's cloud enabled, cloud agnostic. Second one, what are in that application, what are your key object? For example, when we talk about data, we talk about one of the crown jewel. So when we talk about a crown jewel, whether that object you need to be custodian of it, or somebody else can be. Third one is what you are doing with that object, what you are doing with that data. Are you going to derive only reports? Are you going to sell that data? Are you going to hand it over that data to someone? So what are the bridge connections, that is digital handshake, that we establish with that data? That's the ecosystem which will help you take the proper decision whether you have to have a requirement of your local BOM or cloud platforms. That's answer to your previous question. Now, of course, I have not forgot your next question. I'm not going to ask it, but your question was related to how, whether it's relevant, whether it's what is the future about AI. So at least for automobile industry, I can vouch it for that. Being in this domain last 15-20 years approximate, AI is the key towards success, whether you do it right now or you do it tomorrow. But if you do it tomorrow, you are one step behind your competitor. That's the bottom line. Now, do you want to be behind a competitor and then catch up the story after 5 years? Then you are out of the race by that time. So, and AI does not mean you are only pumping money or upholding your capex. It's not like, or going with a bing bang approach and projects. No, think small. For example, as I told you, APAR, that is account processing, account receivables. How to automate it? That reduces almost 25% burden of your finance organization within your within your. Then automate your audits, automate your boss documents. Not, it doesn't take big thinking, it doesn't take capex, but it reduces the labor.
Nice, sounds good. Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
That's a what I loved about all that you said in terms of future. You said think small. Take those steps, and that's something which even Abhay was mentioning a bit earlier on.
Exactly.
About how this need not be a big challenge for us. Once we start doing those pilots, we see that success, and basis that we can really leverage AI for our competitive advantage as such. So
Exactly.
thanks so much for an insightful discussion. This was very engaging, very informative. Really appreciate all of you for joining me today. Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, Abhay, and thank you, Radhakrishna ji. Over to you, Anil. Anil, I guess you're on mute, yeah?
Yeah, I guess I was just listening and I completely forgot that I was on mute. But thanks, Prabhu. Thanks for pointing it out. And but thanks for that insightful, that moderation. And thank you, gentlemen, for the entire discussion around AI. I think some really great examples you've given around AI usage in diagnostics and manufacturing, and so many examples of integration with digital transformation journey, and how do you really start the AI journey. So quite a lot of interesting. I was listening very intently and I found it all very, very useful. But please don't go anywhere, because there's many questions I'm noticing that are coming from the attendees, and I'd like to definitely discuss those with you, bring them up for discussion towards the end of this webinar. So please don't go away. It is now time for a session on accelerate intelligent outcomes everywhere in AI with AI, for which it's my pleasure to introduce Manish Gupta, Senior Director and GM, Data Center Compute Solutions at Dell Technologies. Thanks, and over to you, Manish.
Hello. Glad to be talking about AI here. It's one of the hottest discussed topics today. The discussion today is to explore the successes and challenges we have seen with AI, what you need to think about at each stage of the process, and the approach that we use to help our customers succeed. It is funny that many millennials think of artificial intelligence as a relatively new phenomenon. In fact, the concept of machine learning has been around a whole lot longer than the recent buzz, about as long as computers have been around. What you have today is the right data, we have the right compute power, and we have the right algorithms, which is precisely a reason why AI is at the peak of the hype curve, despite the fact that when this term got coined, a lot of us here were not even born. So we are right there where AI is now starting to make a significant difference in the world as we know it. Moving on, let's look at what are the most significant barriers to AI adoption. The first and foremost, and this is coming through a survey that we have done with a bunch of our customers, the first and foremost is skills. And listen, that's not really a surprise. The reason why skills is the biggest impediment in this entire process is because the technology is still getting adopted. And as the adoption of the technology increases, the skills will be available in abundance. But there again, we as an organization have been on this for a fair bit of time. And as a result, we understand a lot of those skills and where they're available. Equally, the second big challenge is around data. Your AI will not come to reality unless you have the right quantity of data and equally the right quality of data. And obviously the accessibility to data as it exists. So that becomes the second key concern. The third one, no surprises, we have been in this world long enough to know that budgets are never unlimited. But having said that, all the organizations right from the top realize that the AI pilots, the AI projects are far too critical in terms of generating revenue, in terms of giving better customer experience, that the Budgets are starting to become far more available as compared to what they used to be in the past. I will not go through each one of these, but really those three are the topmost impediments in the adoption of AI. What we are now going to talk through is really the hierarchy through which a successful AI project needs to be built. And really, as we talk about that, we've got to remember, we'll start bottoms up, looking at the use case, moving on to data, the models, the software ecosystem, and then it goes to the IT environment. The first piece is really the use case. What do you want to do differently or better? What's the strategic impact? Is it feasible from the perspective of people, processes, and technology? This is really where tight alignment between the business, the data scientist, and IT must occur together. The second piece in the hierarchy is data. You've got to be sure that you have existing data to train the model and the new data being generated to be analyzed by the model. This is where you ask the question about where the data is, how is it stored, whether there are constraints to using or accessing it. The data scientist needs to be sure it's free of bias. And this is where the data architect plays a key role along with the data scientist. On the models, these are really the domain of the data scientist. Somebody who's got to decide which model approach works best. How will IT support that with infrastructure that approximates a production setting to demonstrate scale? You just don't want a pilot case, you want it to go to production. The data scientist will really struggle to demonstrate a scalable POC without IT resources. Moving to the software ecosystem. This is what encompasses everything from model integration into existing applications to application development and orchestration across the life cycle. This is where the data scientist, the application developer, and IT must work closely together. Coming to the top of the hierarchy, this is where you've got the infrastructure. Where and how will you run the model in production? How will it be integrated into processes and applications? What is the effect of data placement? What are the latency and throughput considerations? Obviously, a model you run every week to feed into a business process is going to have very different requirements from a model running on an autonomous vehicle that must stop instantaneously when it encounters certain conditions. So this hierarchy of a successful AI project is the most critical piece of understanding how an organization has to really go through building a successful AI project. Let's look at how do we look at each one of these elements through the lens of how a business problem occurs. Now, what we are looking from the AI model is really a solution to a business problem. We see that organizations mature not only on the journey to AI, but also through the journey of AI. With AI, they often start with simpler use cases to develop their processes, find success, and add incremental value over time. Regardless of the use case, data scientists, business leader, and IT need to collaborate on the journey from business problem to data science problem to data science solution to business solution. The key word is all of them need to collaborate. Whenever you're in a given vertical, discipline, or use case evolution, the next first step should be driven by two key considerations. What you see here on the x-axis and the y-axis. First is the business value. Does it have a strategic impact? And second, how feasible is the use case? Do you have alignment of the 5 hierarchy stages that we just spoke about to make the project a success? When you have the answers to these questions, you choose the best use case and move forward. The two that you see being highlighted here are revenue generating innovation and process improvement, which have been demonstrated to be the most successful IT projects at this point in time. Now, the use cases, by the way, depend on AI tasks and data. There are thousands upon thousands of use cases. I would not go through all of them that are showing up here on the slide. So, just going by some examples by industry. And what you see here on this chart really, and we have bolded a couple of them, all of these are anomaly detection examples. A data scientist would really go identify the commonality of the use case across verticals, across industries, and these, for example, are anomaly detection use cases. What that really means is that the model is trained using data that is expected or normal, and then it looks for deviations or exceptions from that baseline. A classic example here is the escalator, where the anomaly detection could be done based on sound. Some of the other use cases might be enabled by AI/ML tasks such as segmentation or recognition or NLP, natural language processing, and so on and so forth. The tasks may be combined and augmented by a recommendation engine to deliver the result that you need. Now, going back to what we spoke earlier on the data science focus, once the data and model type have been identified and the data has been prepared, the data scientist starts model development and training. Thus begins the process of discovery, circling back, adjusting inputs, outputs, algorithms, all of those. In some cases, too much accuracy can skew outcomes. For example, the model may be overfitted to the example data set and not be able to handle variances in the inferencing data, or the reverse might be true. For example, the AI model has to be accurate, but how accurate is accurate enough? Making a model more accurate often means making it larger, and that makes it run slower. Would you take a 5% increase in accuracy if it comes with a 5% increase in latency or a 5% increase in processing power? Some of those decisions really need to be made looking at the use case, looking at the infrastructure that it's going to be run on. For example, if you're running inferencing on a mobile app, you possibly would give away 5% accuracy for 5% increase in processing power. So some of those decisions have got to be made together between the business owners, between the IT team and the data scientist. These are key considerations that one needs to look at. Now, very often, what we have seen is the problem happens at the last mile, where the model needs to be scaled for production. You've got to remember that when a data scientist has built the model, the data sets have been limited, the codes have been limited. And when they need to be scaled to a real world view, the data sets increase tremendously. And as the data sets increase tremendously, some of the models, the mini codes that have been developed or deployed, really do not stand the test of the time. And that's where, unless you have an agile development methodology, the last mile itself can take anywhere between 12 to 18 months. And those 12 to 18 months could be the time within which the model has already become obsolete. So we've got to remember that there's got to be an agile development methodology that is agile enough to run and develop models and move them from pilot to production. And that's precisely where it becomes extremely important to move to agile development and a continuous delivery, where both the IT teams, the data scientists, and the business group are working together in bringing the nimbleness so that the models are well enough equipped to be moved from pilot to a production stage without too much of a heavy lifting. So those are the key elements that I wanted to talk when it comes to the development of the model. But remember, and as we spoke earlier, apps and data are everywhere. The data might be coming from edge, the data could be coming from the data center itself, it could be coming from across the board. The models that are developed, the data integrity that needs to be taken care of, has to be inbuilt in the entire modeling and how the data sets are looked upon at the very initial stage. Now, having spoken about the hierarchy piece that we were talking about a little while back, let me come to the most important and the highest in the hierarchy, which is the AI infrastructure. Because that's where all of these applications, that's where all of these models are going to run to deliver the right outcome for your use case that you're looking at. You've got to start imagining this from a data staging standpoint. At various data stages, the requirement of compute or storage is going to be significantly different as compared to another data stage. For example, in the early stages, you need storage-dense servers, such as the Dell Technologies PowerEdge R740XT, or a storage-dense server plus Isilon, if greater data scales are needed. In the training phase, the focus is on compute density. Adding accelerators, greater speed is required, or Isilon, all flash for capacity and speed. As you go to the inferencing stage, you'll typically need compute with lighter storage and lighter processing. Our servers are designed with the right ports and slots to provide a lot of flexibility in adding accelerators. For use cases where inferencing must be done at the edge, more extreme environments take place, and which is where we have brought specialized compute which are designed to withstand a lot of those adverse conditions. That could be environmental conditions going into temperature or humidity, and we are bringing some of those capabilities in front of our customers for edge deployments. Also, you've got to remember that across all stages, our open networking switches support performance-intensive deployments, moving massive volumes of data traffic across all AI environments as needed at each stage of an AI project. And as organizations depend more and more on their data to run their business, they're going to want to focus even more on availability and integrity of this data. This is where the solutions from our industry-leading data protection portfolio come into play, including the Power Protect family and the cyber recovery solutions. So really, this is what we are bringing here together in a bird's eye view. Our design principles are really focused on some of the concepts that I spoke to you about, the stage where data is residing. In fact, when I spoke to you on the training part, there are a lot of accelerators which are now available across the industry, GPUs, for example, or FPGAs, for example. And we are bringing the best performance using some of those new technologies which did not exist a little while back. By the way, you've got to remember, as you go after performance on the training side, you've got to have lighter devices on the inferencing, or if you're going to edge, like I spoke earlier, some of the devices which can withstand the most extreme conditions. So moving on and talking about why is it important that organizations should leverage the compute that's optimized for AI? And the reason is because when you have the right infrastructure, when you have the compute that's optimized for AI, the advantages are immense. The data is right in front of you, 18% average improvement in the customer spend. So it's not really about going back to the hierarchy. It's not really about the first 4 stages. At the top resides infra, and it is supremely important to ensure that you have the right infrastructure to run AI models. And as you go through and look at what Dell EMC is bringing in, we are really bringing in a smarter portfolio for AI, something that spans across every single stage of the hierarchy of building a smarter portfolio and a successful AI outcome. Our offerings just don't look at infrastructure, but they also look at the services and the financial models that are required to make this a success. Coming in summary, to accelerate intelligent outcomes everywhere, you've really got to ensure that there's adequate collaboration between business, IT, and the data scientist, ensuring that every AI model is able to put any data anywhere to work, because once you are able to bring all of the data, that's when the success of AI comes together in finding the right value for the business. It could be in building multiple use cases that can impact the customer experience, can impact the revenue generation, can impact your cost, and so many other things that we haven't thought about. End of the day, all of this really builds a sustainable advantage in a world which is very quickly getting disrupted. How do you become the disruptor rather than becoming the disrupted? Let me just put it all together, folks. I think as Dell Technologies, as an organization, we bring the right skills, we bring the right portfolio, we bring the right infrastructure to work with you in your journey to scale from any small enterprise to the largest corporate giant in your journey to be a truly digitally transformed AI-enabled organization. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, Manish, for that interesting session. I could see a lot of appreciative comments from the attendees in the chat window. With this, we come to the end of the webinar, and so I'll request all my co-panelists to come in the center for the Q&A. So, there was a question that Abhay, you have answered, and I'll just go ahead and repeat that. Basically, when we are planning to build a future-ready enterprise, considering the current phase of changes happening in the industry, what will be the optimum period we can consider? You've answered it for one person. Maybe you could just share it with the rest of the attendees for everyone's benefit. You are on mute, Abhay.
Yeah, so again, it's journey component. It cannot be said that it can be done in 6 months or 12 months. It's a multiple factor which impacts. One is the knowledge level, what insights you want to drive, what is the business problem which you want to solve, and accordingly you have to move and plan actually. So depending on, like in manufacturing, it took 3-4 years for us to come to one level actually. But in predictive maintenance, it took almost 6 months. So in logistic, it took some time. In pricing model, it takes time because the situation, petrol, diesel, coal, everything got changed in last 18 months. So you cannot ensure that your model will be accurate. You need to fine tune, refine. So it's a journey and it takes some time, to be frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a journey. It will take some time to perfect, and there'll be multiple iterations and all that to for things to really happen. There's another question that is there, and I'm just going to add to that a little bit. One is that organizations have data, but there's no effective way of analyzing to make effective business decision. Now, in this, one can really say that you can use analytics to make this, analyze the data and make decisions. But the point is that where does AI really come in? Because we have to move beyond analytics. So let's answer it from an AI perspective. Yes, there's lots of data, but you don't want to just use analytics, but you want to move beyond that. So where does really AI come in when it comes to managing all the data to make decisions? Anyone, maybe okay, Yogesh, you want to take it?
Yeah, I can take that question. See, for example, if I talk about automotive industry, right? We have data from last 10 years, but will it be just having that data help me? No, it will not. What will help me is to understand how my each machine, each component, each conveyor belt is doing. Okay. For example, if I'm making, again, I go to car seat. If the user experience on that car, particularly sitting on that using my car seat, if it's not relaxing for XYZ reason, that's the data which is helpful for me. So filtering that data as per my need, data is available, filtering it, that can be done using anything. Simplest Excel file will help. Okay. Second, what is your target out of that data? So after analysis, you figure out 4-5 top bullet points. For example, I always give that example of a car wrinkle seats, right? If my my car seat getting rejected at the OEM door because of the wrinkles, I need to understand where the wrinkles are. Is it at the shoulder side? Is it at the headboard side? Or is it at the shoulders? Is it at the thigh bone side? And why are they coming? These two components is going to help me rectify it before seats get loaded to the truck. That's one. And it needs to be a concurrent process because my car seat need to be get delivered in 120 minutes. Otherwise, there is a penalty associated with that delivery. So it has to be a continuous process for every component after my end of cycle or end of assembly workstation. So for that, what are the tools that I need to use? Whether it's image-based solution, whether it's tapping by some labor technician, and then telling me, sir, there are wrinkles, we need to detect it, or we need to rework that seat. Rework is major cost bottleneck for industries like us. Cannot afford rework. So that these are the, when I talk about data, we talk about crown jewels. These are crown deeps. What are those deeps and how I can push those up to come to the edge of the circle?
No, I think I understand what you're rightly saying. See, if I were to look at analytics, and that's basically just analyzing data and giving you an output that you want to just take decisions on at your own convenience. But here it's about the 120 minutes or so that you mentioned. After that, if the seat is not coming out in that time, that is when you need to have the alerts in time. So being able to analyze that data and being able to give proactive alerts, makes all the difference. So you're still analyzing the data, but you're actually
putting an action plan to that data.
Putting an action plan. So that's where really AI really helps. Abhay, you want to add something to that?
think Yogesh has covered, and I think approach, and that is how we also went about it actually.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think in a manufacturing setup, it's all about being able to proactively take action on all the data that really is coming in, and that's where you really need AI for this entire thing. But just a more fundamental question, I think that was one of the first ones that actually came in. Although we did answer it in the during the panel also, but probably just to kind of recap it a bit. Somebody says that how AI can be used in manufacturing industry. I don't think we want to answer that question. We've kind of, answered that in detail, but probably modify it a bit to say that, in a manufacturing sector, if you were to start the AI journey, where do you think you should really, start if one wanted to really get on the journey? And any insights on that?
So usually that's, I mean, for whenever we have about operations in 60 odd countries. Not every country is at the same pace of AI situations. Okay, Japan is a little bit ahead, US is a little bit ahead to that, Germany is way ahead. But if I take a country like Vietnam, where we have a manufacturing unit, it's a complete manual assembly, etc. So what is that I want to automate it first? And bringing in AI, for example, I have a Gerber fabric machine over there for cutting, which was a manual operations earlier, where accuracy was my challenge. That's the challenge which I received from my COE, that is Center of Excellency from Fabric Department. Now, nobody will give that challenge. You need to go and allies with them, talk to them, understand what are the business problems from CFO, not just from your shop floor, but understand it from CFO, because that's where you'll find the deeps from the circle, not just a spike from the circle. So when you understand those deeps, that there is a quality issue, there are rejection issues, and there are labor issues, then how do you help solve it? How many times in a day it occurs? That's the important thing, because if it occurs once in a day, everybody will accept it and move on. Nobody will think like it is a challenge. But if that gets converted into a dollar value, which your CFO will help you do that. And that's where you start your AI journey.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. I mean, the idea is to be able to do your own self-assessment first and see, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing on a recurring level, and then see where AI can actually intervene to be able to provide that solution.
Exactly.
As we are running short of time, so I'm just going to, ask one last question, probably, a little differently. A lot of people, is based on what, Yogesh has talked about, shop floor. You also talked about shop floor and being able to integrate that with data and all that, with IT. Is there also kind of a fear on the shop floor about, the AI coming in and kind of impacting somebody's, job or something? Is that a challenge that you really come across?
We took it in different way actually. What we are trying to say, we want to help you out. We don't want you struggle in the night when the machine is down. We don't want you to suffer. We want you to have a peaceful night and have what ultimately we are trying to say is we are helping you in taking better decision at right time. And after seeing couple of examples, they realize yes, it is helping them. Initially when I said that we started with too many alerts which are defined by them, it was irritating. But once they narrowed down, yes, this is the time when the alert should come, this is the time warning should come, they realize and they started, yes, it is helping. And that is how it helped us to move to other areas and other.
Yeah, probably it's the same fear that had initially come when, computers had kind of come in and people are fearing that, computers won't really be helpful. But now it's the same fear, but you're just trying to see how it can actually help them in their own work and actually improve the effectiveness of work. No, absolutely. I got what you're saying, where you're coming from. So thanks a lot, Abhay. Thanks a lot, Yogesh, for those insights. Thanks, Prabhu, for, moderating this discussion. I think it's really been great to have all of you join this discussion today. And some great questions have come in from the audience, which you've answered very well. So thank you. It's now time to conclude today's webinar. And thanks once again to everyone. And thank you to all the attendees. I am happy to inform you that, today's webinar will be available as a video on demand on CMR's website for you to watch it again. So if you want to ever go through it again, you can. We'll now call it the day today, but I think we have been sharing a feedback form with you in the chat window. So I would request all of you to share the feedback form on the link posted in the chat windows. That's all from me now, signing off. Thanks again for attending. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you again soon. Goodbye.